Well, greetings everyone again to God's Unchanging Word and our new edition of News, Nuggets, and Insights. Today is February the 10th. Lots of information today, lots of information of turmoil going on around the world. So let's do a couple of quick reminders from last week. What we've been doing is talking about Donald Trump in transition and a lot of the implementation of his administration and what it's been doing around the world. The two that I want to bring out today that we actually talked in more detail last week. So I encourage you, if you don't catch News Nuggets and Insights each week, go to the website, go to God's Unchanging Word, and you can catch all the archives they put up there every week so you can see what you missed from the week before. But this was important enough that I wanted to bring it back out again. This is on the new Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, that was announced on January 31st, 2017. In this announcement, it began to swirl about through the Democratic Party and the liberal left, the pitch, as they would call it, that they're going to spend literally tens of millions of dollars to try to stop this nominee. It's unprecedented in the history. Even though there's always been controversy about certain appointments, never before have we seen the rhetoric, the assault, the libelous attitude toward this person and this administration that we're seeing today. It's almost as if we're witnessing a new civil war erupting between the right and the left. And it's not unusual that we should not be prepared for this, because God said at the end time there would be a rise of evil. And anytime anything shows up that has any resemblance at all, any resemblance to God, is going to be assaulted. What we're witnessing today is the assault against truth, against God's people, against God's conservative way, and against the nation as it was established by the founders many years ago. The reason this is so important for us is because of the protection of the Constitution. Neil Gorsuch is what they classify as a constitutional originalist. He supports religious freedoms, and he does not believe that the Supreme Court's makes laws as has been done in recent decades. The truth is, had it not been for the Supreme Court's ruling and establishment, the Roe versus Wade passage of law back in the 70s would have never taken place. Additionally, the changing of the law between the marriage definition of man and woman also would have never taken place. Both of those decisions, the Supreme Court had no precedent to be able to make those laws. So here we go again. So we'll see what takes place. But here you're going to see a tremendous amount of fight going on in Washington, D.C. to try to stop this nominee. So the reason I'm bringing this out today is this. We need to continue to pray that God will continue to intervene, that this man will sit in that court seat so that he can protect our religious freedoms, so that we can continue to promote the warning witness toward this world and the end time, preparing for the return of Jesus Christ. We've also seen a firestorm against the immigration order that was issued just a week or so ago. We've seen fires, we've seen burnings, we've seen lootings, we've seen people assaulted. And so what we're witnessing is a total breakdown of law and order against what's going on in the protection of our nation. Well, now we need to understand that what we're looking at here is a continual breakdown of God's laws of law and order in the protection of our borders. So now, last week we talked about God setting these kind of boundaries. Look in Deuteronomy 32 and verse 8. This is after God had brought the children out of Egypt and he was establishing them as a nation, and he said this: when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided all mankind, he set up boundaries for the peoples according to the numbers of the sons of Israel. So what we're looking at here is that literally God is showing that he sets the boundary lines. We're also seeing in Ezekiel how God talks about he sets a watchman to watch his nations, that if those watchmen don't proclaim those warning message, they're going to be held accountable. So I encourage you, go back and look at last week, February 3rd, look at that News Nuggets and Insights, and we go in a lot more detail. It's also repeated in Ezekiel 47, verses 13 through 23. Now, this is what's really important, and we're going to pick up our story today. The Middle East heating up. Europe and Asia is following suit. As we see just recently now, China is sending warships into Japan's waters and territories. What are we looking at in the Middle East? Why all of a sudden are things beginning to heat up? Well, there's something that's going on behind the scenes that we need to be aware of. And it's involving Benjamin Netanyahu and his visit to the White House. On February 15th, he will be in the White House and visiting with this administration. What's really, really interesting is what a lot of people don't understand. The very first visit by a dignitary or a leader of a foreign nation was Prime Minister May from England, who was the very first person to come visit Donald Trump. And now we're seeing Israel, whose Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also coming in. So what we're looking at is brothers of Israel who have actually come together, whether they know it all or not. That is exactly what is taking place in coming in. Iran is flexing its muscle. They're testing the waters, and they're going to see exactly how far they can push, just like they did with the last president. When they realized with the last president, they can push with absolutely no ramification, where they're finding a new sheriff in town this time. When this was announced, Iran chose to test a new missile in response to the visit that's coming into America by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Trump administration immediately imposed sanctions against Iran for defying the ban, and then in turn, Iran has also now imposed sanctions, here we go, sanctions against America in retaliation to President Trump. Now, what they're saying is that this ban with the nuclear agreement does not prevent them from testing their missiles. The ban we're talking about is one that was set in place by the UN, which forbids them to test any missile that has the long-range capability of actually carrying a nuclear warhead. That is the ban that they're breaking. Unfortunately, the UN does not flex its muscles to even uphold. It's like a toothless dog who's out there with a warning that has no bite. And so the United States has stepped up and said, this is absolutely not going to be taking place. I've got a response here from General Flynn. It's a short response, so if we're ready, can we play that?
Iran continues to threaten U.S. friends and allies in the region. The Obama administration failed to respond adequately to Tehran's malign actions, including weapons transfers, support for terrorism, and other violations of international norms. The Trump administration condemns such actions by Iran that undermine security, prosperity, and stability throughout and beyond the Middle East, and which places American lives at risk. President Trump has severely criticized the various agreements reached between Iran and the Obama administration, as well as the United Nations, as being weak and ineffective. Instead of being thankful to the United States in these agreements, Iran is now feeling emboldened. As of today, we are officially putting Iran on notice.
So as you can see from that video, that General Flynn means exactly what he says, that this administration is not mincing words, and it's not going to be pushed just like the Obama administration was pushed. What we're witnessing now is a rise of the retaliation of nations who have had their way. It's just like a child who's gotten his way from infancy. When he finally takes a correction, he rebels against that. Unfortunately, what we're witnessing in a very large scale is a retaliation that could, again, bring about war in the Middle East. So we'll have to pay attention to see what's going on with this. Benjamin Netanyahu. What I wanted to do now is I want to bring back from March 3rd, 2015, when Benjamin Netanyahu met before the Congress. And I've got this quote from back in 2015, so let me take a couple moments just to read this, and I got a little short video I want you to see, because Benjamin Netanyahu warned our Congress 2 years ago that this kind of thing was going to take place, and we are there now. Netanyahu said on Tuesday's speech to frame Iran as a major terrorist threat to the U.S. and Israel, framing in the same vein as ISIS and North Korea. He argued that the deal currently in the works to prevent the nation from gaining nuclear weapons would in fact guarantee that it secures them, lots of them. So what he was saying 2 years ago, that the deal made by President Obama not only gave them the opportunity to continue with their nuclear weapons, but is also going to make lots and lots of them. So now let's play that little short clip. It's about 2 minutes long.
He made a grand entrance, usually reserved for American presidents. And then the Israeli prime minister delivered a blistering assault on President Obama's Iran policy and his attempt to strike a nuclear deal with Iran.
We've been told that no deal is better than a bad deal. Well, this is a bad deal. It's a very bad deal. We're better off without it.
Tonight, President Obama is firing back.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has not offered any kind of viable alternative that would achieve the same verifiable mechanism to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
There were a series of standing ovations, but some icy glares as Netanyahu painted a picture of a militant Iranian regime extending its reach throughout the Middle East with what he calls Iran's tentacles of terror.
So at a time when many hope that Iran will join the community of nations, Iran is busy gobbling up the nations.
With Secretary of State John Kerry in Geneva meeting with Iran's foreign minister to hammer out the very deal he was criticizing, the prime minister portrayed the Obama administration as weak negotiators.
This deal has two major concessions. One, leaving Iran with a vast nuclear program. And two, lifting the restrictions on that program in about a decade. That's why this deal is so bad. It doesn't block Iran's path to the bomb. It paves Iran's path to the bomb.
President Obama said he has no illusions about the Iranian regime, but he's focused on the more serious Iranian threat.
It's not whether Iran engages in destabilizing activities. Everybody agrees with that. The central question is, how can we stop them from getting a nuclear weapon?
And the prime minister warned the deal on the table would spark a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, turning an already dangerous region into a nuclear tinderbox.
We can be assured that the visit to the White House next week, these events in Iran is definitely going to be discussed. So we need to keep praying about that God will give the wisdom to the leadership today to see what they can do to continue to prevent Iran, as well as the Middle East, from continuing to escalate. Because the prophecies of God's holy word are secure. They are there, and what we're going to see, that at some point in time, when all of this breaks down, there will be a confederacy. Read Psalms 83. It talks about the confederacy of all these nations coming together to destroy Israel and remove them from the face of the earth. We need to be diligent when we see news like this happening, is to cut through the chase of all the chatter, of all the politics, to understand how does these events apply to the word of God and prophecy. That's what we're trying to do here through God's Unchanging Word and these news nuggets and insights. And we pray that you'll continue to join and watch each week as we go through these things and inform the world of what's going on. Right now, they're not listening. They don't seem to have a need for any of this. But there's a day coming. So we're going to continue to work and push toward that end to bring out God's holy word in light of these prophecies. Now, going on. Actually, we've already covered this, so I'm just going to continue to move on from there. In a CBS, this survey, if it wasn't so pathetic, it would be funny. But are you ready for this? This comes from The Blaze, Glenn Beck's Blaze, on February 6, 2017. According to a CBS poll, a majority of Democrats have said that they believe that the religion of Islam is dangerous, but that other religions are just as bad. Look at this. 66% of Democrats believe that when it comes to other religions such as Christianity, Judaism, and Mormonism, etc., they are responsible just as much violence as Islam, and that only 14% believe that Islam is more violent, which totals out to 1 out of 7 Democrats. I hope you're sitting down when I read that. You need to go back and play this piece of this clip again and look at what I just read. Look at what I just read. Only 14% of that survey of the Democrats believe that Islam is worse than the rest of the other religions. I don't recall seeing a Christian going around cutting off somebody's head. The mass murders that's going place, the genocide of Christians in the Middle East and throughout Asia, as we're looking at today. The absolute, utter ignorance of people to think by listening to the news in the left view of the way life is today is absolutely horrendous. It is no wonder when they began to see things in the light of the truth that the rebellion is going on. Now, I say it's funny to some degree, but it's really sad because what you're looking at is a people being rallied around evil, and the Bible said they would call it good. You are living in that time today where they can look at evil and say that that is good and that Christianity is just as bad and worse than Islam. And only 14% think otherwise. That's unbelievable in the times that we live in today. All right, now, going on. Outside of the news, let's begin to wrap this up for this week, is on the 18th. I wanted to let you know that's 2 Sabbaths. On the 18th that I will be in Tonganoxie, Kansas. For those of you who don't know where it is, just head to Kansas City and take a left. Of course, if you're coming from the north, go to Kansas City and take a right. It's actually about 45 minutes east of Kansas City, and there's several groups who usually get together there. They have a very warm, inviting congregation. They start the day off with a Bible study at about 10 a.m., and then they have services for 11, and then following services, they generally have a potluck, and so everybody's invited, and I hope that you'll come. I've got the information here, so you'll be able to look at this, and you can freeze the video or go to the website and look under the local congregations, and you can get this very same thing that I have right here. It's called the Heartland Church of God in Tonganoxie, and the people you can contact is John and Kathy Monahan. I have the phone number here. Let me read it out: 913-845-2426, or Cliff and Tina Packard, same area code, 913-351-3385. So if you're in the area, you can drive a couple hours to come down there. You'll have a great day, a warm visit, and they'll send you home spiritually fed and filled with lots of good food. So this will be my second trip up there, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. And we'll repeat this again next week, so that's coming. This month, the DVD offering, we're offering the Jehoshaphat, King of Judah, and we're specifically talking about 2 Chronicles 20. I actually delivered it last week, so it's ready for you. We'll have it ready to go toward the end of February, so please write for it. If you're on the mailing list, this is the card that you received right here. Simply fill it out, put it in the mail, and you'll be getting your DVD on King Jehoshaphat as soon as they are ready. We have finally sent out the Constitutional Christian. By the time you see this, News Nuggets and Insights, it's been in the mail, and you should have, many of you already have it in your mailbox, so I hope you'll get to see it. Let me share with you an exciting piece of news. Last week, we were praying that God would help us to be able to get our DVD to Washington, D.C. Well, your prayers have been answered. Believe it or not, Dean Powery, the general manager of the LaCie Broadcasting WHNO TV here in New Orleans, actually brought 10 copies with him to give the VIPs in Washington, D.C. I haven't spoke with him since he got back. He had sent me an email of a couple people he had met, and it's very exciting times for us here at God's Unchanging Word, that this is reaching people that we could have never reached before. So keep praying that we can continue to use this way as a gateway into society to be able to introduce who we are, get them to the website, sign up for information, and begin receiving the Word of God in truth, the way God has given it to each one of us. Well, that's it. That's News Nuggets and Insights for this week. Thank you again for watching us. Keep praying for our nation. Until next week, God be with you till we meet again.